Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, the channel where we are making a computer role-playing game using the free program Twine and the SugarCube format for Twine. This video is just a quick announcement to say that I have added a document to the zip file which includes the game and everything else, which you can download from itch.io in the link in the description. And the document that I have added, I call it the Player's Guide, and it is a description of the most common procedures in the game, of how the program determines the success or failure of the actions that are the ones that you'll be most commonly taking. So, for example, this one relates to the different ways in which you can approach a settlement, and it gives you the way the randomness works and the end results. Going from the monsters attack you, going through, they give you gifts and let you trade with them and so on. It also has the differences between the different races that you can choose to play. So what spells they start with, if any, the total of their attributes excluding size, and then the starting range, not the starting, well, it is the starting ranges, but the ranges of their ability scores as well. So, for example, this is how it works out whether you sneak successfully. This is how it works out what you get if you successfully loot a settlement, and so on. There's five pages in total. The reason I've made this document, there are several reasons. One, this is easier for me to look at than the code. It's easier for me to look at a chart and work out, well, is that fair? Is a formal approach, worth the loss compared to a haughty approach, and so on? It's much easier to just compare columns than to look at the code, which refers to different arrays, which are probably on a different page, and so on. Secondly, for people who are interested in playing the game, of course, you might not want to have the probabilities. You might just want to sort of make choices and see what happens. But if you want to play the game in a more kind of strategic way, in a more kind of working out the exact chances of what's going to happen at any stage, well, this is going to be useful for you. And if you are designing a game, it might be useful, particularly if it's a kind of game like this one, where there's a lot of similarity in the way different encounters work. Approaching one settlement works pretty much the same as approaching another settlement. It's not that each encounter is sort of hand-coded and works differently. If you're making a game like that, it might be useful for you to see how I've made the different things interact with each other. So, for example, when you approach a settlement, one of the results might include fighting, and that refers you to a separate chart, which is the chart for combat. And then one of the results of combat is the monsters run away, which gives you the chance to loot, and so on. And so it might sort of help clarify how these different types of interaction connect with each other. I wouldn't recommend making a chart like this for most games. My game, the main one that I'm making on this channel, is very much like a tabletop role-playing game or a board game. It is very sort of procedural. There are special encounters, there are individual encounters, which I haven't listed in this document, but there is a lot of repetition of the way that you interact, albeit with lots of different possible outcomes. But so it shouldn't be hopefully it won't be monotonous, but certainly it's the same in the sense that approaching one settlement is going to be very similar, mechanically probably quite identical to approaching another. And if you're not making a game like that, a chart like this might be not worth making, or it might even be impossible to make. If you're making a game where there are sort of correct choices and incorrect choices. In a lot of choose your own adventure style games, you might have two choices of how to talk to someone, but one of them is the correct choice and one of them is the wrong choice. And of course, if you were to write that down in a document that people could look at, well, that would spoil that interaction, and so that would be sort of counterproductive. So I wouldn't say that you should have a document like this. I'd say for most games it probably won't be useful for you. But if you're making a very procedural and very sort of randomness based game where there isn't a right approach and a wrong approach, it's just that different approaches will be right or wrong depending on the situation you're in and depending on the attributes you have and depending on random chance, then it sort of becomes more likely that it might be useful for you to make it. But it might be useful for you either as a designer or as a player of the game. And I hope some of you at least find this useful or interesting, and I hope you'll tune in next time.